Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sensual Shift. This is the podcast where we explore the emotional, mental, and energetic sides of sensuality, the parts of ourselves we often ignore, silence, or rush past. I'm your host, Larice. I'm not a licensed professional, and nothing here is medical advice. I'm simply a woman who believes that reconnecting with your sensual self is one of the most powerful transformations you can make. Each week, we'll explore a new shift, a new truth that helps you step deeper into confidence, connection, and self awareness. Today, we're stepping into something many adults quietly lose their playfulness and curiosity. Two qualities that make life feel textured, alive, and deeply sensual. And before you dismiss this as something fluffy or optional, let me say this. If you feel stuck, if you feel burned out, or if you feel heavy, serious, or chronically self critical, this episode might be exactly what your nervous system has been waiting for. Because playfulness is not immaturity, curiosity is not a lack of direction. They are both regulation tools, creativity tools, and resilience tools. It's a biological regulator. Okay. Research from the American Journal of Play shows that adults who engage in playful behaviors experience lower cortisol levels and improved emotional resilience. Play activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the part responsible for rest, digestion, and sensual receptivity. It has been shown that play also reduces stress hormones. It increases dopamine, which boosts motivation and desire, and it improves relational bonding and emotional intimacy. Playfulness is not a personality trait, it's more of a practice. Think about a child for a moment, right? Children are wired for curiosity. We know that. They why 400 times a day. You tell them one thing, they want to know why, right? They experiment, they fail, and they try again. They can turn cardboard boxes into castles with their imagination and curiosity. But somewhere along the way, most of us learned to be efficient, to be impressive, correct, to be productive, and we were rewarded for right answers and not interesting questions. If you think about it, we were always rewarded as a child because you finally got it, you finally understand, but not the fact that you wanted to know why, that you were curious about it. In fact, research from some places like Harvard University and Stanford University has shown that curiosity improves learning retention and problem solving ability. Yet, traditional systems often prioritize performance over exploration. And then adulthood hits. Bills, deadlines, expectations, social comparison, which is one of the things I hate the most. And then play starts to feel more irresponsible, right? You start feeling if you play around or joke around, oh, I'm not being mature or something like that. And then your curiosity also starts to feel inefficient. So what happens is we tighten up, and tightening up is technically the opposite of growth. How can you grow when you're tense and tight and not feeling loose enough to just let go? So let's talk science for a minute, right? Play activates the social engagement system, part of what psychologist Stephen Porges described in polyvagal theory, right? When we feel safe, our body's open, our tone softens, and our thinking becomes flexible. Playfulness is actually a signal of safety in the body. And then we have, on the other hand, when we're in fight or flight mode, everything becomes rigid, serious, and urgent. So you cannot access creative solutions when you're in survival mode. And then curiosity shifts the nervous system from what's wrong, what's the threat, to what's interesting. What can I learn from this? And that is not a small shift, y'all. This is a psychological state change, okay? This is something powerful when you're curious, when you're tapping into your playfulness and curiosity. It can be very powerful for you. So let me tell you something about someone I talked to one time. This lady was a high performer at her corporate job, like I told you before, color-coded calendar, 5-year plan mapped out. But she felt stuck, especially in her career, as I discussed in our last episode. Every decision felt loaded, high stakes, and heavy pressure all the time. So she kept asking herself, what if I choose wrong? Right? What if I make the wrong decision? What if I fail? What if what I decide ruins everything, right? And one day during a coaching session, she was asked a different question. She was asked, what if this was an experiment instead of a life sentence? And then something softened. Instead of, I must make the perfect career move, her thoughts became, what would be interesting to try for the next 6 months? So, sometimes take a step back, and instead of trying to make the perfect decision, ask yourself, what can I try to make this thought of a perfect decision even better? Can I try something else? Does it have to be squeaky clean and perfect? And not because it's going to advance your title or anything, but let it intrigue you. You know? So this course that she took led to conversations, and then those conversations led to a project, and then the project led to a role she didn't even know existed before. And I've been in those places, like I've decided to do something and I didn't even know I had the skill to do it until I tried it and said, hey, what if I do this? You know, kind of fearless in a sense. And I was actually good at it. I actually found out I'm good at a lot of things that I didn't know I was good at, just being curious, honestly. And then your anxiety decreases. And it's not because of your uncertainty is disappearing, but because curiosity has replaced catastrophe. So I say to you, stop trying to control the outcome and just start exploring the process. And then that's where you're going to shift. You're going to shift into your playfulness and your curiosity. And why does curiosity dissolve shame? Because some of us might be a little shameful to say, oh, I was curious about this, or I wanted to know about that. Have you ever thought about this? A lot of people are kind of ashamed of their curiosity, right? So here's something powerful to go with that. Curiosity and shame cannot occupy the same space at the same time, okay? It's not possible. No way. Shame says, I am the problem, right? And curiosity says, I wonder why this is happening. One is a verdict and the other is an investigation. Okay, I'm going to say that again. Shame says, I am the problem. Curiosity says, I wonder why this is happening. Remember, one is a verdict and the other is an investigation. And researchers at places like the University of California and Berkeley have explored how self-compassion and mindful curiosity reduce rumination and emotional reactivity. So when you approach yourself with curiosity, why did that trigger me? Why did that trigger me? What was I needing there? What story did I tell myself? And baby, you know, we all can be inside of our heads telling ourselves stories and making up whole scenarios. Like, what story did I tell myself? So when you approach yourself with that kind of curiosity, you move from judgment to understanding. And understanding creates movement. Okay? So let's throw some micro shifts into play, right? So, playfulness doesn't require quitting your job or joining a circus. It looks more like trying a new route home just to see what's there or if you'll get there quicker, or asking someone a question that you've never asked before. You know, you can try with turning a stressful task into a time challenge. Something that stresses you out all the time, like, I hate doing this. Do it, make it a time challenge for yourself and see how you do. Um, Doodling during the meeting. I know we all get those times where our brain blanks out and we stop listening and everything just sounds like wah, 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 wah. I know I be in my team meetings half the time and I don't know what the hell be going on. Okay. And then I just come back in a little bit and then I don't know, I just be zoning out. I don't know what the hell they was talking about. I look at the little chat. Hopefully they had questions in the chat and got answered in the chat, because baby, I probably wasn't listening in the first 15, 20 minutes. I don't know. And you can also try learning something completely unrelated to your goals, completely out of your comfort zone. Just let your curiosity take over. So, curiosity sounds like, instead of why am I like this, try when did this pattern start? Don't beat yourself up for why you are the way you are. Ask yourself, when did I start being like this? What caused me to start thinking like this or start making these decisions? And then instead of this always happens to me, oh my God, woe is me. Try, is that completely true? Does this always happen to you? Is this something that you think you created, or is this something that you can avoid? And of course, the main one, instead of I can't, we always say, never say I can't. We tell children all the time, don't say you can't. You can do whatever you put your mind to. Instead of saying I can't, right? Try saying, what would make this 5% easier, right? I can't walk up that mountain. I can't walk up that hill. Those steps are too high. But what would make this easier for me to get to the top of that hill? Should I take little breaks in between? Take a few steps at a time? Do those baby steps with 2 feet on each step? 1, 2, 1, 2. What would make it easier for you to climb those steps and get up that hill? These are subtle shifts. But subtle shifts compound. And they work. Remember, I always say start small. You don't have to start with some big old different in your structure in your life. Start tiny. So here's the deeper layer. When you become someone who values curiosity over certainty, you stop needing to have it all figured out. You start trusting your ability to figure things out on your own. And your playfulness is not about avoiding responsibility. It's not about you being immature. It's about loosening rigidity. Rigidity. I always get stuck on that word. Rigidity. It's about loosening rigidity, right? So playfulness and curiosity is not about lacking standards or not being serious or not being mature enough to handle your life. It's about allowing discovery. And speaking of discovery, you can find all of your intimacy enhancers and discover new aspects of yourself at Laris.store. Again, Laris.store for the full list of intimacy enhancers, where you can be playful and curious with yourself, with your spouse, gift it to a friend, birthday gift, wedding gift, anniversary gift, whatever you choose. And just remember, where in your life have you become overly serious? Where did wonder get replaced with pressure? And what would change if just for this you treated one area of your life like an experiment? Not a verdict, not a forever decision, an actual experiment. So ask yourself, this is what I'm going to leave you with those questions. Where in your life have you become overly serious? Where did wonder get replaced with pressure? That is a good question. I'm going to ask myself that as well. I'm going to sit and dwell on that this evening. And what would change if just for this week you treated one area of your life like an experiment? Not a verdict, not a forever decision, but an actual experiment. Okay, remember, growth doesn't happen in tight fists. It doesn't happen in tenseness and clenching and everything. It happens in openness, being open with yourself. And you don't even have to share your playfulness and curiosity this week with anyone. Just do it for yourself. Be curious for yourself. Start there. Okay. And that is going to conclude our show for today. You know, I like to keep it short and sweet and leave you with that. So thank you all for joining me for this week's Sensual Shift. If today's conversation opens something new within you, explore and support your journey at Lareese.store. That's LAREESE.store. And share this episode with someone who deserves to feel more connected to themselves. And I'll see you next week for another shift into your most confident and sensual self.